She vanished into the sky. No wreckage, no signal, only silence. Amelia Earhart, one of the most daring aviators the world had ever known, a woman who crossed oceans, who defied the limits of her time. And then, on a quiet July morning in 1937, she disappeared.
Who's that sexy thing I see over there? That's me standing on the mirror. What's that sassy thing I see around my neck? Let's go, show me some respect. Whoa, I thank God every
Before
day.
we step into her story tonight, tell me, how's the weather where you are? Is it warm and heavy like a summer sky? Or cool and breezy like a night by the sea? Here in the States tonight, the air is gentle, a light wind brushing through, perfect for a blanket and maybe a cup of tea. If your body feels heavy, if your day has been long, let Amelia's flight carry that weight away. Imagine it, the Pacific Ocean beneath her, endless, blue and shimmering in the morning sun. Her Lockheed Electra, a silver bird against the sky, engines humming, steady, sure. Amelia sits at the controls, her navigator Fred Noonan beside her, charts spread across his lap. Two souls against the vastness of the sea. Can you picture it? The horizon wide open, no land in sight, only sky, only water, and the faint crackle of a radio struggling to carry their voices home. Her plan was bold, to circle the world, to finish what no woman had ever done. One last leg awaited her, a lonely speck of land called Howland Island. Tiny, remote, a dot in the middle of the Pacific. But the Pacific is cruel. It hides its secrets well. Think of the courage it takes to fly into nothingness, to trust your compass, your maps, your instincts, knowing a single error means the ocean will swallow you. Have you ever stepped into the unknown like that? Not an ocean, not a flight, but perhaps a choice, a risk, a leap into uncertainty. That was Amelia's gift, to fly boldly, not just for herself, but for every dreamer who longed to rise. On that morning, July 2nd, the Electra lifted from Ley, New Guinea. The engines roared, the ground fell away, and she was gone into the open sky. The flight would take 20 hours. Her radio linked her to the Coast Guard ship Itasca, waiting near Howland Island, a lifeline across the waves. Static, codes, and faint words bridging an ocean. For hours the messages came, her voice clear, calm, reassuring. She said, "We are on course. We are flying steady." But as the day wore on, the signals weakened. Static grew louder, her voice cracked with distance. The ocean seemed to rise, swallowing sound, swallowing hope. At dawn, she should have seen Howland Island, a flat strip of coral, a landing ground in the middle of the Pacific. But the horizon showed nothing, only sky, only sea. And at 7:42 a.m., her last strong message reached the Itasca. "We must be on you, but cannot see you. Fuel is running low." Can you hear the tension in those words? So steady, so brave, but beneath them, the haunting edge of fear. After that, silence. The radio went quiet, the sky swallowed her voice, and Amelia Earhart was never heard again. Can you imagine that silence, the waiting on the ship, the crew straining to hear her, headphones pressed tight, every man frozen, hoping the next breath of static would carry her voice? But nothing came, only the endless hush of waves, only the whisper of wind. Somewhere out there, a plane was running out of fuel, a woman and her navigator alone against the sea. Searchers scoured the ocean, dozens of ships, thousands of miles, but no trace was found, no wreckage, no signal, only mystery. Even now, nearly a century later, the questions linger. Did she crash into the waves? Did she reach an unmarked island? Was she captured? Was she lost to the sea forever? No one knows. And perhaps that is why her story endures. But tonight, this is not a tale of despair. It is a tale of courage, of a woman who dared the sky, of a spirit that refused to bow. If your day has felt heavy, let her courage remind you, you too can face the unknown. You too can carry hope into silence. And as you close your eyes, let the sound of the ocean be the hum of her engines. Let the quiet sky above you be her final horizon. Because Amelia Earhart did not vanish, not truly. Her story still flies, her courage still carries us, and her mystery will always linger in the silence of the stars. The silence stretched on. Minutes became hours. Hope began to bend. On the deck of the Itasca, men leaned over the rails. Their eyes searched the sky. Their ears clung to headphones. But there was nothing. Only the endless roll of waves. Only static hissing through the wires. Have you ever waited like that? For a message that never comes? For a voice you long to hear? And all you find is silence? That was the weight of that morning. The world held its breath. Amelia Earhart was not just a pilot. She was a symbol, a beacon of courage. When she vanished, it was as if the sky itself had closed its doors. The search began at once, the largest in naval history at that time. 66 aircraft, 9 ships, thousands of miles of ocean swept and searched. Every wave was scanned, every shadow studied, but the Pacific revealed nothing. It held its secret close. Imagine those planes circling, engines droning over endless water, pilots leaning forward, eyes straining for a glimpse, a wingtip, a scrap of silver, anything. But mile after mile, there was only the sea, blue, stretching forever, unbroken, unforgiving. Some believed Amelia had crashed and sunk. The Pacific, deep and vast, would have swallowed the Electra whole. No trace, no sound, just silence below the waves. Can you picture that descent? Engines sputtering, fuel gone, the nose tilting down, the ocean rising, and then stillness, a sudden quiet. It is a chilling image, but a peaceful one too, like slipping into rest. Others thought differently. What if she found land, a tiny reef, an empty island, a place forgotten by the maps? For years, whispers spread, reports of strange radio calls, faint signals at night, voices crackling through static. Help, we are here. Were they hers? No one can say, but the thought lingers. Perhaps she touched down on Nicomaroro, a remote coral island. Perhaps she lived for days, maybe even weeks, waiting for rescue that never came. What do you think happened? Do you believe she sank beneath the waves? Or do you picture her standing barefoot on white sand, her eyes on the horizon, hoping to see sails appear? That is the power of mystery. It lives in both silence and imagination. The search lasted for 2 weeks. Every ship strained, every plane circled, but no sign came. Finally, the Navy called it off. The ocean was left untouched again. The silence returned, and the world wept. A pioneer had been lost, a dreamer had vanished, a mystery had been born. But here is something to remember. Even in loss, Amelia gave the world a gift. Her story is not about fear. It is about courage, about daring the impossible, about flying into the unknown, knowing the risks, yet rising anyway. When you feel restless tonight, when your mind won't quiet down, think of that. Think of her Electra, a silver bird in the morning sky. Think of her steady hands on the controls, her calm voice across the radio. Even as the world slipped away, she did not waver. Can you feel that calm, that steady resolve? It can be yours too. Your storms may be heavy, your nights may be long, but you can face them, step by step, breath by breath, just as she did. Sometimes the mysteries we carry are not meant to be solved. They are meant to remind us, to keep wonder alive, to keep courage burning. Amelia Earhart may have vanished, but she left behind more than silence. She left us a story, a haunting, a reminder that the human spirit can rise above even the deepest seas. So tonight, as your eyes grow heavy, let the mystery settle in your chest, not as fear, not as sadness, but as quiet wonder. The ocean still whispers her name. The sky still carries her shadow, and her courage, her unshakable courage, still flies in you. Close your eyes, breathe slow, and drift with the hum of her engines into silence, into peace, into rest.
The search was over. The ships returned home. The ocean closed its grip. Amelia Earhart was gone. Yet, in her absence, her story began to grow. Newspapers around the world carried her name across their front pages. Her face, smiling, determined, looked out from photographs. And with each passing day, the mystery deepened. Why had she vanished? Where had she gone? Would we ever know? The questions did not fade, they multiplied. Can you feel it? That ache of not knowing? That haunting pull when a door closes without explanation? It's the kind of mystery that follows you to bed at night, that whispers in your mind, that refuses to rest. For Amelia's disappearance was not just a tragedy, it was an opening, a story without an ending. And endings, we crave them, we long for them. But sometimes, there is only silence. Theories began to swirl. Some swore she had crashed into the sea. Others believed she reached Nikomaro, a lonely coral atoll. Years later, bones were even found there, weathered, partial, too fragile for certainty. Were they hers? Some said yes, others said no. Science gave no final answer. Then there were stranger stories, whispers of Amelia taken captive, that she lived as a prisoner in the Pacific, that she survived, her name hidden, her voice silenced. Do you believe such things? Could she have lived in shadow while the world mourned her loss? Or was that simply the imagination of grief, longing to keep her alive? The truth may never be known, and perhaps that is the very heart of her story. Because some mysteries are not meant to be solved, they are meant to live in us, to stir our wonder, to remind us how fragile, how fleeting life can be. But Amelia's life was more than her vanishing. She had been a pioneer long before that final flight. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, the first to push against the boundaries of the sky. She was bold, fearless, always reaching for the horizon. And she did it not only for herself, but for others. For every woman told, "You cannot." For every dreamer told, "You must not." Her wings carried more than her own hope. They carried the weight of countless hearts. Have you ever felt that? The desire to prove, not just for yourself, but for someone else? To rise, so others might believe they too could rise. That was Amelia's gift. Her courage lifted others. Her story became theirs. Even in loss, her legacy endured. Airports bear her name. Books tell her story. Children learn of her bravery in school. And each time her name is spoken, the mystery lives on. Think about that for a moment. She vanished, yet she has never truly disappeared. Isn't that a lesson? That we are remembered not by the way we leave, but by the way we live. So as you rest tonight, let Amelia's story remind you, you do not need every answer. You do not need to solve every riddle. Sometimes it is enough to live boldly, to step forward, to risk, to fly, even if the ending is unknown. Because what matters is not the silence at the end, it is the courage in the middle. Can you close your eyes and see it? The Electra gliding low over the ocean, the morning sun catching its wings, Amelia at the controls, calm, focused, eyes on the horizon. Her voice carried once more, "We must be on you, but cannot see you." Then silence. And yet, in that silence, her story soared higher than ever before. Let this mystery carry you now. Let it soften your thoughts. You do not need to solve it. You only need to drift with it. Because Amelia Earhart's flight is not over. It continues tonight. In your imagination, in your dreams, and in the quiet courage that rests in your own heart. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and fly with her into the silence, into rest, into peace.
The silence did not end in 1937. It grew, it stretched, and it followed the world for decades. Amelia Earhart had vanished, but her search for her, the hunger for answers, was only beginning. For weeks after her disappearance, newspapers filled with theories. Some said she had drifted far off course. Others claimed she had run out of fuel and slipped beneath the waves. Every map was marked, every rumor studied. Families kept radios tuned at night. Static whispered, strange voices flickered through. "Help us," some seemed to say. "On an island, running out." Were those Amelia's words? Or simply ghosts of the airwaves, shadows of hope projected into sound? No one could know. But the world could not let her go, because Amelia was not only a pilot, she was a symbol, a dream alive in human form. So the search went on, year after year, decade after decade. Imagine the Pacific again, endless, stretching horizon to horizon, thousands of islands scattered like grains of sand. And in that immensity, one small plane, one missing story. How do you find it? How do you begin? The Navy tried, historians tried, explorers tried, and still the ocean kept its silence. But then, small clues began to surface. On Nikomororo Island, a remote atoll in the Phoenix Group, pieces of metal were found, rusting, weathered, but shaped like aircraft fragments. Nearby, a bottle, a shoe, human bones. Were they hers? Scientists argued. Some tests said yes. Others said no. The mystery deepened. Picture that lonely island. Palm trees swaying, waves washing coral. No voices, no rescue, only the sound of surf against sand. Could Amelia have landed there? Could she have walked its beaches, searching the horizon for sails? Could she have waited, day after day, for help that never came? It is a chilling image, but also a hauntingly human one. Not a crash into silence, but survival. Hope stretched out until hope itself grew thin. What do you think? Do you believe she sank quickly, her story swallowed by the sea? Or do you imagine her last days beneath the palms, still holding on, still watching the horizon? Both visions live, both whisper through time, and neither will ever fully fade. For others, the story grew stranger still. Whispers of capture, that Amelia was taken prisoner by forces rising in the Pacific, that she lived in shadow, her name buried, her voice silenced. These tales spread like smoke, but truth never showed its face, only rumor, only longing. And yet, perhaps the truth is not the point. Perhaps the mystery itself is what keeps Amelia alive. Because sometimes an answer closes the door, but a mystery, it leaves it open. It invites us to step inside, to imagine, to wonder, to dream. Think about it. If we had found her plane, her bones, her last words, the story would end. We would close the book and the world would move on. But because we do not know, because the sky still holds its silence, Amelia Earhart still flies. Every year, new explorers search. Every decade, new evidence is claimed. And her name remains not buried, not forgotten, but alive. And maybe that is the lesson for you tonight. You do not need all the answers. You do not need every ending. Some mysteries, some questions are meant to stay open, just like Amelia's. So as you rest now, let her flight be your comfort, her courage your guide, and her mystery your lullaby. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and drift with her wings into silence, into peace, into sleep. The search for Amelia never truly ended, but something else began in its place. A story, a legend, a symbol that grew larger than her life.
Children learned her name in schools. Young girls read about her flights. Pilots whispered of her courage. She became more than a person. She became an idea. The idea that the sky had no limits, that barriers could be broken, that fear could be faced. Think of your own life. How often do doubts hold you back? How often does fear keep you grounded? Amelia lived differently. Her life said, "You can rise, you can fly, you can dare." And that, perhaps, is why her story endures. In the years after her disappearance, women entered the cockpit in greater numbers. They pointed to her name. They said, "If she could try, so can I." The women Air Force service pilots of World War II spoke of her. The space program later looked back to her courage. Even astronauts, sailing far beyond the skies she once knew, called her a pioneer. Amelia was not just of the air. She was of every frontier. But the mystery, the haunting absence, was always part of her power. When people spoke of her, they did not only speak of bravery, they spoke of wonder, of the unanswered, of the silence she left behind. Can you feel that? The pull of the unknown, the way it lingers in your mind, even as you lie here tonight? It is soothing in its own way, because the unknown is infinite. It stretches wide like the ocean she flew across. It whispers possibilities like the wind that carried her wings. Stories of Amelia filled books. Movies were made, songs sung. Her smile became an icon. Her name became eternal. Yet through all the retellings, through all the theories, no answer came. And that silence was its own kind of beauty. Because sometimes the mystery itself is the gift. It keeps us awake with wonder. It softens us with awe. It humbles us before the vastness of life. And for those who cannot sleep, for those whose minds race in the dark, a mystery can be a balm, a place to wander, a place to drift. So let's wander there together. Close your eyes for a moment and picture Amelia's Electra still gliding over the Pacific, the isle endless, the morning sun rising behind. Her voice steady, calm, hopeful. Now picture the silence after, the soft hush of waves, the sky stretching wide, and no answer, no ending. Isn't there something peaceful in that? Something that reminds you that not everything must be closed, not every door needs to shut. Amelia's story shaped history, not because it was finished, but because it was not. Generations after her, people still spoke her name, still searched her islands, still studied her maps, still leaned into her silence. What other mystery has lived so long? What other absence has carried so much presence? She was gone, but she was never lost. And neither are you. Even in your quiet moments, even in your long nights, you are not lost. Your story, too, carries onward. Your silence, too, speaks. Amelia reminds us of that we leave echoes behind, that we leave ripples in time, that our courage is remembered far beyond our final horizon. So let her mystery guide you tonight. Let it soften the noise of your day. Let it calm the questions in your chest. You don't need to solve everything. You don't need every answer. You only need to rest. And as you rest, remember Amelia's flight. Not just her vanishing, but her soaring, her daring, her courage. A courage that still whispers in the quiet skies of night.
Amelia Earhart never came back. Her plane never returned. Her voice never rose on the radio again. And yet, her story has never been silenced. Even now, decades later, her name carries power. It whispers through classrooms. It echoes in museums. It lives in the dreams of children who still look to the sky. Because Amelia did more than fly. She showed the world what it meant to dare. She showed the world that courage itself could take wing. Think of your own life. How often do you dream of horizons? How often do you long for something just out of reach? Amelia reminds us that the horizon is not a wall. It is an invitation. It calls. It beckons. It dares us to rise. Her legacy is not only in what she did, it is in what she left behind. Pilots still speak her name. Writers still chase her ghost. Explorers still search the islands and the ocean floor. And each time they do, her courage lives again. But perhaps the most haunting gift of her story is its unfinished ending. Because in every unanswered question, in every unsolved clue, we find space for wonder. And wonder is what keeps the human spirit alive. Without mystery, we grow small. With mystery, we grow infinite. So ask yourself tonight, what mystery do you carry? What unanswered question still whispers in your chest? It may not need solving. It may not need closing. It may simply be there to guide you, to remind you to keep searching, to remind you to keep dreaming. Amelia's mystery does this for us all. And there is peace in that. Because even though we cannot know, we can still imagine. Perhaps she rests on an island where palms sway in the wind. Perhaps she sleeps beneath the waves, her plane cradled by the sea. Perhaps she reached a distant shore, her story hidden from the world. Any of these could be true. None may be true, but each carries its own quiet beauty. History remembers her as a pioneer, a woman who broke barriers, a soul who refused to be confined. Her courage became a torch passed from generation to generation. And her disappearance, it became a reminder that life is fragile, that even the strongest wings can be claimed by silence, but also that the silence does not erase the flight. So as you drift tonight, let her legacy settle over you. If today was heavy, let her story lift it from your shoulders. If your mind is restless, let her mystery soothe it into calm. If you feel small, remember how she faced the sky. And know, you too carry courage. You too can rise. You too can dare. Amelia Earhart's final flight was not just into the Pacific. It was into time itself, into memory, into story. She vanished into silence,
but her courage still roars like engines in the sky. Her hope still shines like the horizon at dawn. Her mystery still drifts like waves upon the sea. And tonight, as you close your eyes, you carry her with you. Her strength, her calm, her daring spirit. So breathe deep. Let the hum of her engines become your breath. Let the hush of the ocean become your rest. Amelia Earhart still flies, and so will you, into dreams, into peace, into sleep.